And you were employed at Sloss from what?
23,
1923 till
65.
At Sloss Furnace's National Historic Landmark, we like for people to learn the entire history of industry. And of course, as you're walking through the furnace site, a lot of the aspects of the museum tells about the furnace technology and how the site operated and how we made pig iron and why that was important. And it also tells the stories of the men that worked out here at this site in particular, as well as pretty much any industrial site of Birmingham. 70 to 80% of the workforce was black. You have all these people working and living in these areas and at these industrial sites.
Did that put these furnaces here in Birmingham at a shortage of labor?
No, always somebody that wanted a job. We kept plenty of men all the time. Always somebody here wanted a job.
Sites, and it's very important to tell their story of why they came to work at a site like this. Why did they choose to work at a site like Sloss Furnaces? It was because it was a better opportunity than almost anywhere else in the South at this time. Better economic opportunities, better social opportunities, better educational opportunities in the urban environment versus the rural environment. But of course, one thing that we always like to tell people as they come through our site is that better does not mean it was a good opportunity, and better does not mean it was an equal opportunity. It was just a better opportunity than what was out there at the time, which is why so many thousands of people were moving to Birmingham to find work. Telling that story of both the positive and the negative of the site, the segregation aspects and some of the aspects of black workers not allowed to have any supervisory roles at Sloss, but the positives as well. And of course, the convict leasing system plays into that story, because it's an injustice to the people that come out to our site if we only tell them the positives or we only tell them the negatives. By telling the full story, or as much of the full story of industry as possible, people leave with a much greater understanding of how industry has impacted Birmingham, not only in the past, but how industry can impact Birmingham even today. The convict lease system, even pre-Civil War, convict leasing was in a kind of early stage of its existence, with prison systems using prisoners as labor. And they did this, again, to recreate this idea of slavery so that the companies would not have to pay their workforce anything at all and still make a lot of money off of it. So this, the root of everything is greed and racism is at the root of everything here. And as you start seeing this system shift through the Civil War and after the Civil War, all the southern states start passing what we call the Black Codes, which are new sets of laws. In Alabama, it was the Penal Code of 1866, which really started what we know as the convict leasing system. Right at the end of the Civil War period, 1866, when you start passing these Black Codes. And these vagrancy laws, as part of the Black Codes, allow law enforcement to arrest primarily black men, but anyone for any reason, almost whatsoever, under these vagrancy laws. And once they're arrested and convicted of a crime, then their sentences could then be sold or leased to a company like a farm or industry across the state. When the convict leasing system began in Alabama, most of the convicts were sent to help with the railroads and help with other industries, and in certain areas, the mining aspects of them. A key thing to understand with the convict leasing system is the fact that these companies that use the convict leasing system almost entirely had control over these men, and in certain instances women's lives, as they came to the mines or wherever else they were being used at the time. Now, these mining areas, like I said, primarily the coal mining areas, these companies would build their own prisons, they house their own prisoners, and they'd man their own prisons with their own people. And it was really completely outside of state control in many instances once it becomes really embedded in industrial landscape. Now, at these prisons, the conditions were very, very poor quality. And in many cases, the men would be in the ground before sunup and out of the ground after sundown. So in many cases, these men would never see the light of day as they were working in these conditions. So not only the conditions of the mines, which outside of the convict leasing system were just tough conditions at this time, even for paid labor. A key thing to keep in mind when it comes to Sloss Furnaces and the convict leasing system is that, of course, no convicts were ever used at the furnaces.
Sloss was using convict labor all during this time, yeah.
And that was county or?
Yes, Sloss coal mines, most all the coal mines being operated mostly by convict labor, contract with the state.
the furnace job was such a skilled job, it wasn't something that they wanted to rely on convicts to run a site like a furnace site. And that again goes back to why all these companies sent them to the coal mines. So interesting thing about Sloss Furnace history is, of course, the site that is now a museum changed hands many times over the years. James Withers Sloss started the company in 1881, but he sold it in 1886 to a group of investors who originally came from Virginia. And so as this investor, who was just about to take over Sloss, had already taken over the Coalburg instances through the Pratt Coal and Coke Company, which owned and operated a convict leasing mine. And so as that Sloss Furnace company becomes part of that fold, that's when the convict leasing system starts getting into the Sloss Company as a part. And that would be 1886 is when it starts going into the fold at the Sloss Furnace Company. It was created to recreate slavery. They used methods and practices before the Civil War, adapted them so that they could take advantage of the workforce of black Southerners. You start looking at that aspect of it, then you start looking at the humane aspect of the actual prisons themselves. Dr. Park in late 1800s actually did a report on the health conditions at the Coalburg prison, which was at the Coalburg mine, which at the time was operated by the Sloss Furnace Company. And as he was looking over the conditions of this prison and documenting how horrible the conditions were at this prison, he noted the death rates at various entities, including the entire city of Birmingham and the death rate at this Coalburg prison. And he compared the two. So the death rates per 1,000 people in the city of Birmingham was about 12 per 1,000 people. And the death rate at Coalburg prison was about 90 per 1,000 people. The convict leasing system that was used by the Sloss Furnace Company ended at the same time that it ended for Alabama, which was 1928. The second to last state to abolish the convict leasing system was Florida in 1923. And very soon after that, a lot of politicians in Alabama started pointing towards that point for Alabama as well, promising to end the convict leasing system and moving forward to end the convict leasing system. And unfortunately, like with a lot of things in our world, money started playing a role.